SGA once again. Little hesitation. The left hand. What a move by SGA.
Another block. Chet Holmgren, the long arm of the law.
Back in the game. These are key minutes without SGA. And another drive. JDub cocks it back and throws it down.
This is Udart. You're listening to the Uncontested.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Uncontested Weekly Show on a Wednesday evening. We're part of the Blue Wired Podcast Network and proudly sponsored by Prairie Artisan Ales. I'm your host this Wednesday night, JD Silva, joined by my guy, TP.
Silva, what's up, my brother?
I just mowed the yard.
There you go.
Right as the sun was going down, mowed the yard. So
hey, you got it done.
Got it done. And
in the heat, but we've been very blessed here in Oklahoma in comparison to most years during the middle of July when it's just miserable outside.
The issue is, and I'm living in this is the first house I've lived in on my own. And so I'm still getting in the routine of mowing it. And I'm I can wait 7 days to mow, and then it'll rain on day 6.
Yes.
And I'm screwed.
Exactly. And you have a jungle in your front and backyard.
Yeah,
and then
so
it's 10 times harder to mow.
I got to go back there with a machete and cut shit down. It's I don't actually do that, but it's bad. It's bad, dude. But anyway, it's the off season. If you can't tell, we're opening the show with lawnmower talk.
When will they talk basketball?
What are they going to talk? The Chet Holmgren. We'll get there. Before we get into it, be sure to subscribe to us wherever you get your podcast. Leave us a 5-star rating if you haven't done so already. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, etc. We also have a Patreon that you can check out by scanning the QR code up here above my head or clicking the link in the description of this podcast. We have exclusive Discord there if you join our Patreon at the lowest tier. We also have a slightly higher tier where you get extra content, bonus episodes.
The
degenerates. Ranged. Yeah, we have a good time.
Shout out the degenerates.
We have a good time.
It's a good time. And a great time to join, too. We'll, again, things have kind of finally slowed down for the uncontested. We, are no longer in finals mode, championship mode, and we're excited to bring you guys some additional bonus content, get back to the bonus pods. Be sure when you do join and you're in the Discord, let us know what you want to hear from us, what you're wanting to see. We're excited to engage with you all during the off season, and it won't be too long until Thunder basketball's back again, Silva. That is the joys of going long into the postseason.
Yeah. We'll get to see our guy Topić pretty soon again.
Yeah.
I don't know when.
Summer League. Hey.
Summer League.
So, I know we've talked about Summer League. There's only been 2 games since last time you guys podcasted on Sunday. Not a whole lot of new takeaways, I don't think, Silva, but Topić obviously going through some early struggles. I think a lot of that will be fixed. Just having, I don't know the politically correct way to put this, but NBA tier players around him in comparison to what he's playing with. It just is what it is. He's making some incredible reads, continues to look really impressive. Obviously has a lot of work to do when it comes to conditioning, getting back into NBA game shape, which won't really happen until you start the season. We've seen that with every single player, right? But the reads are next level. Obviously, the turnovers are still a little bit of a concern, but it doesn't concern me all that much. The things that stick out to me about Topić Silva is his ability to play in transition, to just rip the ball off the rim or get the ball, get steals and deflections, find his way into passing lanes, and then start the offense in transition. That's going to fit so well for this team. And then having a player like him with that vision, being able to find guys like iHeart or Chet around the rim, or maybe it's Isaiah Joe or Aaron Wiggins who's cutting baseline. I think he's going to thrive alongside those players. But then on the other end, Ajay continues to look great. I know Monday night he didn't score the ball very well. Came out Tuesday night in the back-to-back and looked his usual self that we've become accustomed to. A lot of fun, exciting things to take away from those two players, I think.
Yeah, Topić has been cool. He gets a lot of giddy comparisons, and it's easy to see those comparisons. It's two not super athletic white guys that are kind of pass first, and they're not super natural jump shooters, but there is a some pretty big differences that jump out right away to me. I think Topić is a more opportunistic player.
Yes.
In terms of like he's not just relying on his first move to get him to where he wants to go. You know, Giddey a lot of times would just like try and catch you off the dribble immediately.
And then you knew he was either shooting and he was going to miss. Love Giddey.
Floaters.
Going to miss, or he was going to drive, like you said, Silva.
Yep.
And Topić, his hesitation moves just has, and I think in totality, like has more in his bag, for lack of a better term.
He does.
And
he has a deeper bag. He's a more natural hooper out there, I think. And you're totally right. If he plays around NBA players, I think he'll be a lot better. I like the process. If there's any sick bastards out there that cover potential assists in Summer League, I guarantee Topić is high on that list.
They're high.
But anything else in Summer League you want to dig into the meat?
Just kind of curious your thoughts, just because I've been spitballing, thinking about it and talking with some people about it, like heading into Vegas.
Vegas.
There it is. You've been on it with the Sounders. Silva, you crushed it Sunday. Those Sounders.
Thunder Chick.
Perfection.
Vegas.
Hey, Thunder Chick. Sorry we aren't there this year to meet up with you. Hopefully next year. We'll see. Hopefully the Thunder. Actually, hopefully not. Because that means that the Thunder made it to the finals again. And we did another finals road trip. But we miss you. Wish we were in Vegas. I'm just curious, Silva, what we think. I mean, again, this isn't a very deep Summer League team. We've talked about kind of the two main players plus Barnheiser, who's shown a lot of promise as well. Kind of curious what we see in Vegas. Like Vegas Summer League, do we see Ajay play multiple games? Do we see Topić play multiple games? Just kind of curious to see how that all plays out. But outside of that, like it's kind of nice not having big storylines. We don't have to worry about like what a Chet Holmgren or a JDub or looks like in Summer League.
No, we're not like heavily relying on development, and we're not like grasping at straws, just like praying that guys work out in this. Like, I think
we are, but like on a much bigger stage. Like we're thinking, and we're going to talk so much about this offseason, but Chet Holmgren's growth offensively and his shooting, which JDub looked like with a healthy wrist. We'll get into that as well this episode. Guys like Case and Wallace taking another step, but like that's all such positive things, and those guys have already been in the highest of literally the highest pressure environment you can get in when it comes to the NBA. It's much more optimistic and exciting, I think.
Yeah, knock on wood, but I don't think it's possible to play a more stressful series, like sequence of series, than they did last season. So I think we're beyond the peak of stress. I haven't watched a ton of Summer League. I've mostly been dipping into like highlights and stuff like that. It's kind of hard for me to watch. Yeah, I mean, the Utah Summer League experience is a bleak one. It's like
it's a grind.
2/3 of the lights are off, and then they're in like 400p resolution. I mean,
we said we're just going to riff on this podcast, right? And we do have some structure, I promise, listeners. But one thing I said that I've been saying throughout the entirety of the season and postseason that we would touch on eventually, or that I would touch on eventually, when it came to the offseason, it's just the inefficiency in refereeing, the refereeing problem that I think the league has. And that's just been on full display yet again for me, Silva, watching these Summer League games, not just the Thunder. I've been watching VJ Edgecombe and the Sixers, and I watched a lot of Utah Summer League games, and like, it's brutal. It's hard to watch when the refs are officiating a game like that. That's a topic for another time, but you're right. It makes the games very tough to watch on top of it already being Summer League, right?
I feel like it should be more lax if it's Summer League. Just get it over with.
Get it right and let the guys play through it. I think you're exactly right. Really quick, good friend of the podcast, Donnie Hazelwood, said, I would guess that we would see Carlson in a few games in Vegas as well. Donnie, we found out, I can't remember who tweeted out, somebody who was there. Was it Steve?
I don't know.
From News 9. Basically, somebody tweeted out that he's had like an ankle injury. Nothing major, but that's why he's been sitting out. So maybe we don't see him in Vegas.
All right. You want to get into it?
The big news of the day, Silva. We woke up to some exciting news.
Yeah. Shams Charania dropped the first, really the second domino. First domino was SGA's extension. The second is now Chet Holmgren's extension. He got the rookie max extension, 5 years, $239 million. I just want to talk about our I want to talk about our immediate thoughts. I want to let you break down how the contract works out, and then we can get into the conversation of that. I know if you're listening to this podcast, you've probably been a part of, in some way, the conversation on social media today and the like weird fear mongering going on around this. My first thoughts is no brainer. Hell yes. Can't wait to see how good he is when he's 27 and this contract is really peaking in terms of its value. Chet has been amazing. Compare it to guys that are similar to him, like an Evan Mobley. I think Chet is just as good or better than Evan Mobley, and this is great. If Chet hadn't had 2 freak injuries, no one would say a damn thing about this. But if you're the Thunder, you bet on a guy not having more freak injuries and prospering like it looked like he was going to at the beginning of this season. You bet on your guy. He just won a title. He was a very important part of that title-winning team. And if you're just if you're a really good rookie and you project to be a really great player as you approach your prime, you get a rookie contract. You get a rookie max extension. That's just kind of what happens. That is what happens. It's happened to worse players than Chet for sure.
I'll save the discourse there because I think that's what we're going to spend the majority of the time on. But you mentioned Silva just giving a breakdown basically of what his new contract looks like year by year. And then also I think we need to also get some details on, what a rookie extension actually is. And then the additional money, the incentives that go into that can make it bigger than the actual 25% of the cap. So shout out to Daniel Bell. He tweeted this out. If he's wrong, be sure to go after him and not me. But in all seriousness, this is correct based off the estimated 26-27 salary cap. The breakdown of Chet's 5 years, $239 million deal extension, max rookie extension. Year 1, he'll make about 41.4-ish million. Year 2, he'll make about 44.7 million. Year 3, 47.9, so right around 48 million. 51.3 million year 4, and 54.6 million in that 5th year, which, by the way, according to The Athletic, does not include any options, no team options, no player options. And as our guy Jacob mentioned, we were talking about this in our contested group text earlier, Silva, the Thunder often historically have not given out player options on these rookie extensions. So what all does that mean? You look at Sham's tweet, and you see that Chet Holmgren has agreed to a fully guaranteed 5-year max rookie contract extension that could reach $250 million. And then you compare that to the tweet that Shams had yesterday, Silva, and for Paulo, and it was like 279 or something like that. So with the rookie, again, this isn't going to be 100% correct. I'm trying to summarize this in the best way possible.
You're not Bobby Marks.
I'm not Bobby Marks. Exactly. But essentially, the full rookie max extension is 25% of the cap. That's what Chet got. That's the 239 million number that we mentioned here earlier. That's the number that I broke down from Daniel. But the report of 250 million, where that comes into play, is when we start talking about the incentives, right? And so, you hear about a player like LeBron James back in the day. He is now, after making All-NBA, he's now eligible for a Supermax extension or whatever it may be. These players on these rookie extension contracts are able to, based off incentives, get up to 30%, another 5% of a team's total cap space. And so with Chet, it's interesting. And this is where I'm still not 100% sure.
Yeah.
But, Shams tweets out the 250 million. That'd be right around like 1% of the additional 5% that Chet could have made up from the 25. So like when it comes to incentives, that could be All NBA, or it could be Defensive Player of the Year, or making it to the playoffs, or making it to the finals. Giving that it's only 1% rather than like the full 30% that he could have gotten, or the 5% additional 5%
So
he could have gotten.
26% is kind of what he's
correct. And the numbers don't completely match up too. And that's the other thing. Like it could come out with additional details that if Chet does make All-NBA, that he gets the full 30% rather than the 26% that he's at. But that's when we get into like the intricate details from the Bobby Marks and the cap gurus that know these kind of things, where it comes down to like likely and unlikely incentives. And so like a likely incentive would be like, Chet, you get that additional 1% of the 25% if the Thunder make the playoffs, right? That's a likely incentive.
Mm-hmm.
More unlikely incentive would be, Chet, you get the full 30% if you're named All-NBA.
Depoy.
Right? Depoy, right. And that doesn't mean it's like unlikely to happen. That's just how they're categorized.
Yep.
So all that being said, and I probably did a very poor job of breaking that down, but that's why Paulo had a higher number reported for his rookie max extension, Silva, than Chet. And that is why Dub has still not been announced. And it likely, that total number, when Shams tweets it out, is going to be higher than that $250 million, if that makes sense. Because Dub has already made All-NBA 13. And he's already made an All-Star team.
And that's something that you sort out in negotiations, right?
Correct.
It's like, okay, we think you, it's like
also, they have the same agent.
They have the same agent. So this is obviously worked out. And it would make sense. Like, we as Thunder fans would probably value JDub, would think JDub is worth a little more than Chet right now. Like, JDub just had 40 in a finals game, All-NBA, defensive team, All-Star, all this stuff. It would make more sense that JDub would be able to make a little bit more. And so JDub would probably be able to get up to a 30%. And that means next season we're going to be looking at seeing like, oh, is he going to make All-NBA? Is he not? That's a different conversation. But Chet's he got the max. He got the max. And are you at peace with that? Are you cool with that? Did you expect anything differently?
No, not at all. I didn't expect anything differently. When I saw the news, Silva, I said, awesome. Finally,
right.
Not finally. We knew it was going to happen, and we know it's going to happen with JDub. Had people in my DMs, people texting me, like, why haven't they signed yet? So much that goes into that. I mean, JDub just had surgery. Chet was doing his kids camp, back home in Minnesota, then came back to OKC and threw a camp for kids here. And then he signed his extension. Probably not a coincidence. All that being said, I wasn't surprised. I wasn't shocked. Like, this is exactly what we expected. And again, there's so much discourse, Silva, that we've seen just ever since that deal was announced. And so much misunderstanding when it comes to, I think, today's cap and what these extensions actually look like. But I think our guy Nick broke it down really well when we were talking earlier. And he was like, here's the reality. The question people really need to answer is, do you think Chet isn't a rookie max level player? Or do you think he is? Because if he is, that number isn't going to change. Maybe the incentives change, like we just broke down. Maybe it's closer to Paulo's range or whatever. But Chet, $250 million over 5 years, no player option. Do you think he's not worth that? And 10 times out of 10, I'm saying yes. Because 29 other teams in the NBA, if the Thunder don't offer him that and he goes to restricted free agencies, like, they're offering him something very similar. It's a no-brainer is what it comes down to.
I think what I realized most today as we kind of ease into what people's thoughts on this in general is that people don't know how much NBA players make now. Like, people have no idea what players are worth. I want to let's just name off some other guys that have gotten rookie max extensions recently. Scotty Barnes. And when we say max, it is 25% of the cap for that year, the year they ink the deal, right? Or is it the year that the deal kicks in?
It's the year that the deal kicks in.
It's like a projected amount.
But still.
So this number is going to go up next year. Next year, Wemby's going to sign an extension, and it's going to be more than Chet. And everyone's going to, the Spurs fans are going to be like, yeah, Chet, Wemby's making more than Chet. And that's only because he's making what he is eligible to make. So you get this percentage. So Scotty Barnes, Cade Cunningham, Evan Mobley, Ant Edwards, a few years back. Those are kind of the names you think of when you think of rookie max contract extension guys. Chet is one of those guys. He's the second best rim protector in the NBA behind only Wemby, who is like a god, like highly, highly, highly valuable player. And the price of doing business is you pay him the 25% max. Windhorse Windhorst calls it the fun max
Yes.
because it's really easy to give, and you're banking on a guy improving. And oftentimes they do improve. Like Chet's not going to be making $47 million next year. Is it next year or the year after?
2 years.
2 years from now. He's not going to be making $50 million a year until he's in his prime, about 27 years old. All these people that are hating on this deal right now.
At that point, when
then
the cap has
evaluate.
risen as much as it has, that's a bargain contract.
Because what do you think rookies are? What do you think 25% of the cap's going to be 3-4 years from now?
Gosh.
An insane amount.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
An insane amount.
Those rookie extensions are probably going to start out at what Chet will be making, like you said, in his prime, and that year 4 or 5 of that contract.
Yeah.
I also loved Silva. I keep mentioning our group text when we were going through all this today, but you said you put this into really good perspective. And again, this is all different because these players are older than Chet. Therefore, obviously, those deals are going to look different. Just like we mentioned, the rookies, like the Cooper Flag, who will sign this extension, and it will look just astronomical, right? And be making as much as Chet does that first year of his rookie extension, potentially. But you said Chet now makes as much as Pascal Siakam. And what was the other one? Oh, he makes $1 million less than Lauri Markkanen.
And I think he makes $1 million less than Sabonis. Also,
I pick Chet over those players.
I would too. And now I have people on Twitter, of course, saying Chet's not as good as those guys. I'm like, those are not Sabonis and Markkanen are not winning players.
They're also older.
That's the
thing. It's like that's the other part of the conversation. It's like you mentioned earlier. Like think about Chet pre-injury coming out of his first healthy offseason, heading into this season, the first 10 games that he played, how aggressive he looked, driving to the rim. We talked about that so much on this podcast. I remember Jacob and I talking about that specifically game after game. His 3-point shot looked better because he had his legs under him, which is something we've talked a lot about with Chet, and then still doing the things that he does defensively. But then he comes back from that injury, still isn't 100% when it comes to conditioning and just getting back into you're thrown into the latter third, maybe less than that, of the regular season. And then you're thrown into the most physical, the playoffs, the most physical part of the NBA that you'll see ever. And the way he was able to just hold down the fort defensively, be that go-to rim protector. I don't have to get into the stats. I don't have them pulled up, but the Thunder were much better, both defensively and offensively when Chet was on the court. Everything screams at you to just like, here's your contract, Chet, sign here, please.
Pretty easy decision. Like that is, as much as Rick from Seattle hates this deal. Like I had someone in my mentions earlier saying Chet's not worth $50 million right now. He could possibly be great in the future, but that you pay off results, not the future. Brother, it's a contract extension. You do pay off what you think he's going to be in the future. And his contract values are based on the salary cap when you sign them and your value across the league. Chet's going to make as much as Anthony Edwards, but that's not because Chet is as good as Anthony Edwards. It's about when you sign your contract.
And then Ant's going to make more than Chet when he's eligible for his Supermax, which he obviously will get.
It's always a pendulum.
Just like Shea, right? Like being the highest paid player in NBA history based off this max extension. That's not going to last very long because guess what? Luka's coming up for an extension as well.
Right.
You're spot on. But the thing with Chet that we keep talking about, like, I think what it comes down to is we know that he's capable of so much more, especially offensively. He's going to continue to develop on both ends of the floor. I mean, shit. He literally is posting Instagram stories 2 days in a row, today and yesterday, and he's back home in his high school gym already getting shots up and putting the work in, right? Yep. And that combine that with his talent, he's going to get better offensively. But even if he didn't, you give this contract to him 10 times out of 10, 11 times out of 10.
You do, because he's still like better than Rudy Gobert. Like, he's still like a Rudy Gobert type of guy, and Rudy Gobert made a shitload of money in his career. Like, but
as much as Jacob hates Rudy Gobert,
I know Chet is more than that. I think we all believe, and it is so silly to. We all watched Chet at the beginning of the year. A lot of people will cite his finals offensive performance as to why he doesn't deserve this money. You cannot tell me that was what Chet's going to be next season or the season after or even beyond then. He was clearly not right. You would have to completely ignore that he broke his hip and missed 2/3 of the season and lost conditioning to fully make your point that he is who he was in the finals. It is ignorant to say that he's not going to improve and be much better offensively moving forward. That's kind of where I've ended up on this. It's just
and not only that,
ignorance.
But we saw the Minnesota. I'm trying to remember. I can't remember the exact games, but I'm thinking back to the podcast and the post game pods that we did. And there is a game in Denver where he came out in the second half and basically like you don't win the game without him because of his offensive performance on top of his defensive performance. There's one in the Minnesota game. There's one yet again. I think what game was that? Was it game 2 against the Pacers? I can't remember, but obviously game 7 against the Pacers that iced it. Like his defense there in the second half changed everything. 5 blocks. Like, yeah.
I didn't think I would
this.
think so much about. I did not realize I'd be thinking so much about this contract extension when it came through. I was like, oh, obviously, and then I moved on. And then as I scrolled Twitter like I do occasionally on the For You page, which is really bad for me, I came to realize 2 things. One of them has been happening. That the goalposts for the Thunder and the reasons why the Thunder will fail change every few months. At this point, it was the youth. It was Jay's they're not gonna be able to handle the physicality. Oh, now they're too physical and they're just getting away with it. JDub's not gonna be able to do it. And now it's the second apron is gonna tear this team down. Now that's just something new every couple of months, basically, because the Thunder are an uncommon team and people don't know how to deal with it. So they're just they're just taking narratives and running with it, I think.
And there's also something like so much bigger than like I was having this conversation with coworkers after work today, like so much bigger than just sports, but like this toxicity trickles down into things like sports and reality TV and just recreational things like that. And I'm trying to think like how to properly word this. Basically, if there is somebody having success, you have to justify it by tearing that team, that person, whoever it may be down, right? Like this can't be sustained. Boston Celtics fans are fans, that are coming after the Thunder and Thunder fans after all these announcements saying, well, we couldn't sustain this, so you guys can't either. Instead of like, we just need to be celebrating. It was an incredible game 7 of basketball that wasn't quite celebrated enough between 2 incredible teams. We need to be celebrating as Thunder fans, Sam Presti, who has set this team up for long-term success with different team options, team-friendly contracts, expiring contracts when it comes to guys like iHeart, and obviously the plethora of draft picks that allows him to continue to bring in young, high-caliber talent to put around these big 3 that are going to be making a lot of money so that way you can afford them long term, right? And then we're talking about 2029 when the player union or the owners can opt out and can completely renegotiate a new CBA. Like the Thunder are set up for such with long-term succce. And I think Bobby Marks was all over it. He was like, we've been diving into the salary and looking at everything. Thunder set up so well for the long-term future, even when they pay all 3 of their big 3.
And objectively, they are set up well for the future. Like it is factual that they are structured in a way that is very manageable moving forward. But like a lot of things in life right now, like the facts can be right here in your face. But if you happen to hate the source of that fact, you will not agree with it.
Correct.
That just kind of happens. And it is no coincidence that everyone that's been in the antagonists in my mentions today have been Celtics fans who are having their team torn down because they've been in the apron for too long and their team is old. That's why it's because their team is old. They had bad, like toxic contracts. Drew Holiday might be a lemon player at this point. Like they had to take 2 picks away from that deal because his physical didn't come back.
It got them a championship. That's great.
It did.
But that's what. And now they're looking at us and they're like, "Wait,
it's Celtics fans."
They look at OKC and they see the runway for more potential championships long term.
It's Pacers fans. Yeah, it's Pacers fans who was like, "Oh, Miles Turner played better than Chet in the finals." Well, brother, you don't have Miles Turner anymore. He left for nothing. So sorry. Or it's Denver fans and we beat them and they're it's no coincidence where the hate is coming from.
No,
you
not at
always,
all.
almost
Wolves
always
fans.
from a place of jealousy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I've looked into this. I've picked everyone's brains about the salary cap and how it's all going to work. Really good tweet I wanted to show from Betsy Cash Money on Twitter. I was just
What a
curious,
name.
I was just curious because we know that the combined salaries, as far as a percentage of Chet, JDub, and SGA, are going to be 85 to 90% of the cap at some point. The cap's those contracts are going to stay the same, and the cap's going to rise. So it might not always be at that number. It's probably going to shrink at some point. But Betsy outlines percentage of the salary cap teams have allocated to their top 3 players across the NBA. If you're watching on YouTube, I have it sharing. If you're not, I'll read them off. And this will hopefully make you feel a little better. So top 3 players and how much of the cap they take up for other teams. The Sixers, 90% of the cap. That's Embiid, Paul George, Tyrese Maxey. And Taylor, I'm also going to ask you, do you feel better for the next 5 years about our core or the core I mentioned?
Oh, this core. Absolutely. Yeah. They're young. They're still developing. Even Shea to an extent, right?
Right.
It may not be scoring 30 whatever a game and being an MVP. It may be playmaking and trusting in these other two to continue to improve, and the rest of his teammates, obviously, as we've talked so much about, to continue to improve, trusting in them more, which leads to more playmaking ability, focusing on that 3-point shot and becoming more consistent there. Chet, Dub, there's so much improvement there to be had. Yeah, absolutely. And I think this tweet just really puts things into great perspective, especially when the argument has been after the Thunder win the championship and everybody wants to tear them down that aren't Thunder fans. Well, you're going to be paying 85% of the cap to your big 3. You can't sustain this.
Well, so is every other good team.
Correct.
And the other good teams are a lot of times aging out, and they don't have the assets to replenish their team. 90% teams, Sixers and Warriors. Sixers, injury concerns and age. Warriors, that's the UNC squad at this point. Their average age is like 35. Celtics are at 85% post Drew Holiday. All their money's in JT, JB, and Derek, which is still a good core, but they just don't have the picks or any young prospect you would care about.
Correct.
Cavs, 85%. They're in a good spot. They have a pretty deep, good team. They just keep failing in the playoffs for some reason. Nuggets are at 80%, but Betsy notes that will increase next year.
Because Jokic does not want to extend this year, and instead will extend next year when he can make more money, which nothing against him. It's a great point to make from Betsy.
Yep. Knicks, 80%. Lakers, Clippers, 75%. I'm sure the Lakers would love to be able to pay someone else with enough talent to take up more cap space, but they just don't have the talent. So they're paying 40-year-old LeBron and Luka, who is on Weight Watch every summer. They would love to be able to pay more than that. Rockets and Wolves, 73%. The Rockets being at 73 is actually really good.
Yeah, I agree. Same for the Wolves as well.
Wolves too.
And also the Lakers. I know there's all the drama when you have LeBron James on your team, but he's an expiring contract. And we know he's not going to play more than at least another season. So they're in decent shape. But the point being, everybody who wants to use this as an argument for the Thunder, they're going to have 80+% of their cap space tied up with the big 3. First of all, as that tweet shows, that's what happens when you're a contender. Yep. Second of all, the Thunder are more positioned than maybe anybody else in NBA history to navigate that. And that's incredibly impressive. All shouts to, or all respect to Sam Presti, who put us in this position. And it is what it is. I don't know.
It's a privilege to have 3 max players. How are we in a place where people are upset that there are 3 max players on the team? That is so dumb.
Agreed completely. Speaking though, Silva, before we get out of here, there's one other player of the big 3 that we haven't talked as much about because he has not yet signed his rookie extension. Yep. We alluded to it when I was trying to poorly explain rookie extensions and how that works. And JDub still hasn't signed his extension. We aren't worried about that at all. It's happening Bill Duffy's going to make it happen. There's no worries there whatsoever. It's just a matter of what it ultimately looks like. But Silva, JDub dropped a pretty incredible video. Was he? Yeah, yesterday.
Yeah, it was yesterday, I think.
Finally gave some details into what happened with his wrist. He said he wasn't going to do it until Sam came out and said that JDub had the wrist injury, and they finally announced it, which I partially believe. Obviously, if they would have lost the finals, he wouldn't have come out with this video.
No.
But he had a lot to get off his chest, and he was so candid about it. It's just absolutely incredible to hear what JDub went through and to perform the way he did. I mean, it makes me think like some asinine thoughts about JDub and his potential. We've talked so much about Chet and his potential, but man, like what JDub did with a bad wrist, a completely torn ligament in his shooting hand, and to be able to perform the way he did, it's just, it's incredibly impressive.
Yeah, I mean, some notes and takeaways from that video. He had to relearn how to shoot. He had to shoot a different way because he couldn't flick his wrist. So he had to learn to like push the ball off of his fingertips to shoot. Same thing for dribbling. Had to learn how to dribble a different way. Had to get there's a cortisone shot and like before every game.
Cortisol, and then it's a Vitacaine. So basically,
Vitacaine.
One is basically like a pain it basically numbs your hand. The other is to help with the inflammation and the swelling. And so you kind of alternate those, but you can't have too much of the I think it's Vitacaine. I keep saying that.
Was it lidocaine?
Yes, I think so.
Lidocaine. It said lidocaine. I trust me with my life.
Lidocaine. Lidocaine. Don't matter. Thunder in 7. But it also just like hearing him going through that process and then the Thunder like adjusting to that. Obviously, it helped when they got out of the 7-game series of hell with the Nuggets and having a couple more days of rest. He mentioned that allowed him to be able to get those shots again, but also they adjusted when they gave him the shots, which I found interesting. It just shows you how great this Thunder staff and the medical staff is, where they would give him the shot before the game instead of like earlier in the day. And he would still feel the pain in his wrist a little bit in the first quarter, but as the game progressed, he wouldn't feel it anymore. Basically, it would last him more of the game than if he got it earlier in the day. Like, I found that fascinating. But the thing you pointed out is just the adjustments he had to make, Silva. And we talked so much about it. Why is Dub passing up these open threes? Why isn't he driving to the rim more? He adjusted as the playoffs went on. Like he said, his catch and shoot, like that was so much harder than just pulling up off the dribble.
Yeah.
Like having to adjust and get his hand positioned under the ball because he couldn't basically move his wrist. But just crazy stuff.
It sounds painful. It sounds, I mean, imagine you can't play back. The playoffs are starting. Imagine just like the playoffs are starting tomorrow. You cannot play a game unless your hand is numb the entire time. Basically, your wrist is numb the entire time. And you drop 40 in the finals. You drop 40 in the finals off of that. I'm sure he'll make a recovery. They wouldn't have pushed him so hard if they thought they'd make it worse, I'm sure. But yeah.
I also love that though. Like he didn't want to get out to the media.
No.
He said specifically. The Thunder didn't put him on the injury report because they didn't want teams like adjusting to that, knowing that Dub had a wrist injury, trying to go after that. And also he didn't want to make excuses like you mentioned. And
dude, how many times have we seen throughout the playoffs of guys just riding the excuses? Luka at almost every playoff game Luka plays, something is wrong. And you're going to know about it. He's going to be limping all over the place. He's going to look exhausted.
Only when he doesn't get the call he wants. Though.
Only when he doesn't get the call he wants. I mean, the Nuggets, Jamal Murray had an illness, and Aaron Gordon obviously had the hamstring thing, which I believe was real. But it's
yeah, absolutely.
Shams was like, what a warrior for going out there and playing off the hamstring. It's just a different mentality. It's like no distractions and all accountability from JDub, which I have to respect.
So Nick Jordan in the chat says, sounds like a Kobe story. And if you go back and watch or listen to the video that JDub posted, he was like, I don't want to make this a Kobe thing because obviously, he's a big Kobe fan. He's talked about that in the past, but one of the players that had this injury and played through it that the medical staff gave him for reference was Kobe Bryant, which I found really cool.
That is cool. It's a point of inspiration for sure. Shout out to JDub, dude. He's amazing, and I hope we get that contract extension notification soon.
I think we will. I think it will be within, honestly, before next week. It'll be latter part of this week. Tomorrow will be Thursday. I bet we get it before the weekend's over.
We do have a super chat from our guy Alan McIntosh I wanted to read because it's also something we can close the show with. It's pretty cool. Alan McIntosh says, IDK, if you've talked about it or not, but SGA being the cover of 2K26 is great. Can we all agree that they need to fire the people who made it?
Oh my gosh. That Photoshop, first of all, the cover looks really cool, like when you first see it. But the Photoshop is horrific. It's like a bunch of like Celtics players, like all blurred out. Yeah. Al Horford's like
there twice.
Silhouette is there twice. I saw somebody, he was like, I'm a 20-year-old college student with graphic design background and can make a better cover than this. And he crushed it.
It sucks.
It was awesome. I know. But
awesome for SGA being the cover. I never would have thought he would be on the cover of 2K. Like, it's just kind of another thing to add to his resume. Deserves the recognition for sure.
Absolutely. And it's pretty incredible to see another Thunder player featured. I think I can't remember who this was that tweeted out, so apologies, but the Thunder had like the second most players in the past decade or decade plus. I think it was since they came to OKC, 2008, 2009. They had the second most players featured on the cover of NBA 2K for a small market to get that
KD
recognition.
Twice?
KD twice, Russell Westbrook. It's pretty cool.
That is cool. Did you see the DoorDash tweet?
No.
They quote tweeted the announcement saying, can someone Photoshop SGA at the free throw line on this cover? And then they deleted it afterwards and said, sorry, Shay, love you, bro.
Of course.
Like, if you're still on the free throw stuff, like, get a job.
It's all for engagement. Like you just mentioned with that tweet, right? That's
means
why
nothing.
They deleted it overtime coming out and doing their tweet about photoshopping him at the free throw line. It's like, maybe I think it was Clemente who tweeted this out. You fill quite a bit of prospects with your overtime elite situation there. You should focus a little more on that than trying to get engagement on Twitter. But again,
I do miss the 2K covers of old. I played like 2K11 through 2K15, 16 or something like that. Those were just, feel classic to me at this point, but it sucks that there's like graphic design on like big budget stuff now is just getting more and more simple and like minimalist. Like, go back to give me weird art on there. I don't care. Like, you remember the Dwayne Wade cover where he's like in the Miami Vice colors? Like,
I remember buying that with my
weird.
brother and us playing that game on I think it was PS2 at that point. Like, yeah. I agree.
All right, dude. Anything else? Are we good?
Just, I think we vented a lot on this podcast.
It felt good.
And it felt very good. I think we needed to for the fans and listeners who listen to this podcast, because obviously they get caught up in the narratives as well. But at this point, I would just encourage all of us here on the podcast, even those of us like on the Twitter accounts, or even our listeners in the comments. Thunder won a championship. As we just broke down and fought back against all the narratives, they're in great shape long term. Don't let others steal that from us as a fan base. Enjoy every single second of it. Enjoy rubbing it in their faces, but don't let them steal the joy and the excitement of the Thunder winning a championship and being set up for long-term success. And Chet and JDub and Shay being locked in long-term here in a small market of Oklahoma City.
Well said. All right, let's get out of here. I'm always afraid I'm going to hit I have a whoop that trick, the song from one of our live shows right next to the intro button. I'm always afraid I'm going to press that.
Honestly, that'd be perfect.
I know.
I wouldn't mind it.
Thanks for listening as always, guys. Fun to break down the Chet extension. We'll be back on Sunday. We're on our off-season schedule. We'll also be announcing what our next Patreon show is very soon, so keep an eye out. Keep an eye out for a new intro coming soon as well. And until then, as always, adios and Thunder up.